Hello friends, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be talking about the very exciting last few days I've had. For me, it all started on Friday, October the 28th, when I went to Hal Con, which is Halifax's version of Comic-Con. This was actually my very first ever Hal Con, so that's pretty exciting. I'd always been meaning to go, but just never got around to getting tickets. But this time, I managed to. Hal Con started on Friday at noon, but I actually was working at that time, so my plan was to, once I got off work, go right to the convention center, which my dad actually built. My dad built the convention center that Hal Con takes place at. Believe it or not, this actually wasn't my first time in that building. I had been in it before. My best friend came in town a couple of years ago from Singapore, and we met my dad in downtown Halifax, and he gave us a little tour of it. It was empty, so Hal Con wasn't going on. This time, it was pretty packed, and there were a lot of people, some in costume, some not, but there were some pretty impressive costumes, actually. So I get there, and the first thing that I did was got my pass. So this, basically, as you probably can guess, is what basically got me in all 3 days of Hal Con. They said to me, don't lose it. So I made sure that I had it on at all times. And I'm gonna have it on right now. My first event was an autograph session with Tanner Zipchen, who, if you don't know who Tanner is, he was the very, very energetic host of Cineplex for a number of years. Now, I had no idea where the heck I was going for some of these, so I'd have to go to a volunteer and be like, hey, do you know where this is? Do you know what room this is? What floor this is on? So I had a pretty hard time finding my way, but eventually I made it to the convention floor where Tanner was doing the autograph signing, and I get there early, and so I'm just waiting around for a couple of minutes, and one of the things that actually made me really want to go to Hal Con this year was a couple of the guests that they announced. One of which was Will Friedle, who was Eric on Boy Meets World, who was the voice of Batman, and also voiced Ron Stoppable in the Disney series Kim Possible. And when I heard that he was coming to Hal Con, and there were a couple of other guests as well, but when I heard that he was coming to Hal Con, I was like, I'm going this year. So I'm just waiting for Tanner, and there's Will, and he's not doing anything at all. And one of the volunteers comes over to me and says, hey, do you want to talk to Will while you wait? And I was like, sure. So I went over to Will's booth, introduced myself to him, talked to him for about 10 minutes. We talked about the shows that he's worked on, Boy Meets World, Girl Meets World. I grew up with Girl Meets World. I have watched Boy Meets World. It's a great series, a great nostalgic series too. Girl Meets World was when I was in high school, so I watched it. It was actually one of the shows that made me want to become a writer. And I told him that, and he really appreciated that. It's funny because with my membership to GalaxyCon, I got a personalized autograph from Christy Carlson Romano, who voices Kim on Kim Possible. I didn't meet her, just put my name in to get a personalized autograph. And there it is. She wrote on it, to James, what's the sitch, Christy Carlson Romano. You know, it's funny, my sister's girlfriend said to me, oh, it's so cool that you're going to be meeting both Kim and Ron this year. And I said to her, actually, I've got to correct you on one of those. So Will and I talked a little bit about my job on the TV show that I work on. And, you know, I told him I want to be a writer. I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I get to that position. Told him that I host a podcast about retro pop culture. So maybe we can get Will to come on Nostalgia Talk one of these days. You never know. Could happen. So yeah, after about 10 minutes, we finished because a fan came by and wanted to talk to Will. And so then finally Tanner shows up, and I gave him the picture that I wanted him to sign. And he says, what do you want me to write on it? And I was like, oh, whatever you want. You have a lot of passion for movies. You know, I watched you host the Cineplex pre-shows, and if you guys have seen Tanner host the Cineplex pre-shows, then you've definitely seen his passion for movies. It's incredible. And so he looked at me like, well, thank you. And he wrote, James, keep at it and enjoy the show, from Tanner Zipchen. So I had a little bit of time between then and the next event, so I decided to walk around and see what there was. There was a food court. I got a slice of pizza for dinner because it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock. There were a lot of people in costume, and yeah, there's a couple of the costumes right there. Martians from Sesame Street. Yeah, somebody was dressed as one of the Martians. That was pretty cool. That Bumblebee costume was pretty cool, too. I really thought that was amazing. I saw quite a few people that I know, actually. Some who were not in costume, so I recognized them easily. And one of the really cool things that they had was a bunch of old-school arcade games. There was Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a photo booth, one of those claw grabber things where you can just grab like a plushie out of a machine. The Simpsons arcade game. It was really cool. So I played a couple of them. I played Donkey Kong. I played Donkey Kong before. I'm pretty terrible at it. I've never finished a level of that. Like, if you've seen how Donkey Kong works, like, I usually lose a life on either the first or the second bar. I really suck at Donkey Kong. I do love playing Pac-Man. I'm a little bit better at Pac-Man than I am at Donkey Kong. And so I think I've finished a level of Pac-Man before. But this time, no. It's pretty hard. Then I went to go and check out some of the vendors. There were people there that were selling, like, art and books and stuff like that. There were a couple of comic book authors and illustrators who were selling their work. I got to see some of them. I got to talk to some of them. But one of the pieces of artwork that I bought, actually, was a Muppet artwork, and the artist, whose name is Dina... I hope I'm saying this right. Dina Pagliario. I hope I said that right. And she sold this from the Muppet Christmas Carol. It's Kermit as Bob Cratchit in Muppet Christmas Carol, and Robin as Tiny Tim. And it says, "'Tis the season to be jolly and joyous." I thought this would make a great Christmas decoration. Maybe I'll hang it up here. It would make a great little Christmas decoration for my room, actually. Next event, laser tag. I've played laser tag before, and I love it. So I decided, I haven't played in a long time, so I decided I would try it again. And I get there, I get to the lineup, and one of the volunteers says, "We need you to sign a waiver." And I was like, oh, okay. I thought laser tag was just a fun game. I didn't know I had to sign anything. So I read the waiver, and it said possible risk of death. There was a little bit more to it than that, but that was where I was like, okay, major red flag here. So I got kind of nervous, and I was like, okay, I don't want to do this. But I did ask one of the volunteers, okay, what does this mean, risk of death? She explained, just in case you have a heart attack or a panic attack. And I was like, oh, okay. That made me feel a little bit better, because I knew that for laser tag I was going to have fun. And I was the first one out. Damn. So the next day, I get to Hal Con like an hour before the first event. The lineup was pretty long. There were a lot of people in costumes, which were really, really cool. A lot of anime characters, and I have to admit, I'm just getting introduced to anime. Like, I was not a Pokemon kid. I watched it, but I wouldn't say I was a big Pokemon kid growing up. I recently watched Spirited Away, which is a great film. There were a couple of Spirited Away costumes as well. So finally, I'm in line for like an hour and 15 minutes, and because it moved pretty slowly, like they were taking people in groups. And so the first event was an autograph signing with Will Friedle. So I go to the same place that I met him the first time, and got my autograph picture for him to sign. It was from Boy Meets World, and I gave it to him, and he's like, "There's a smudge on this." And I thought, I don't know if that's a smudge. So I looked through another one. I was like, oh, there is a smudge on that. Because as it turns out, I thought that was just part of the picture. It turns out it wasn't. So he threw out the one with the smudge, and he said, "Pick up another one." And here is the autograph. And if you watch Girl Meets... You probably... If you're a Boy Meets World watcher or a Girl Meets World watcher, you probably have seen this before. But this is Will as Eric in Boy Meets World in his Mr. Squirrels outfit. And there was an episode of Girl Meets World where he came back, and in his very first scene, he's dressed like this. And Riley, which would be Corey from Boy Meets World, Corey's daughter, and Topanga from Boy Meets World, who's now married to Corey. Eric comes over, and they were explaining to Riley that he was mayor. And it's like, well, who would elect him mayor? Topanga says, "The good people of Stupid Town." And Eric says, "It's not called Stupid Town. It's St. Oopid Town." So I said to Will, it's really great that you made it all the way to Halifax from Stupid Town. And he said, well, it's important, you know? I married a moose. And so, on the autograph, he wrote, to James, I married a moose, Will Friedel. The next event was a photo session with Tanner Zipchen. Now, you can get the autograph and like a table selfie together. They have really good photographers for the photo sessions at Hal Con. So I decided to do the photo sessions and the autograph sessions individually. So I get there, and there's Tanner. I actually saw Tanner quite a few times walking around, and I would say hi to him. One time I'm like, hi, Tanner. He looks behind himself. I'm like, over here. And yeah, he said hi back. So I went in for the photo, and there it is right there. There's Tanner and I. He was very, very nice. His energy and passion for film is really, really incredible. Next event, yet another photo session, this time with Will Friedel. And there was actually someone in the lineup dressed as Kim Possible. You know, Kim meeting the real voice of Ron. And this is really, you know, this was really a big part of the weekend for me. I get to the photo stage where Will was, and he looks at me and he says, hi, James. And right at that very moment, I felt very, very connected with him. I really did. And that's really something, because Boy Meets World is a show that I got into it during the pandemic, and it really did teach me a lot. I was like 21, and, you know, at some of the things that were on the show, I was like, oh, wow. You know, there's things I never really ever thought of. It's the stuff that show came up with. It's the stuff that those writers came up with. And, you know, because here it's a show about a kid that's just a typical kid, and then he keeps maturing over time. That's not Will's character. Will's character definitely got mature throughout the show. But still, it's a great show, and it's a great teaching show as well, and so is Girl Meets World. So, right at that moment, when Will says to me, hi, James, I kind of felt like I was a friend and almost like a brother to him. Now, the next event was actually very, very interesting. I was talking about wanting to become a writer. It was actually a writer's class, and the person teaching it was DJ McHale, who created the series Are You Afraid of the Dark? I've never actually sat down and watched Are You Afraid of the Dark? It's a show that a lot of people that I know really, really liked, but I thought it would be interesting because Nickelodeon, which is what Are You Afraid of the Dark was on, Nickelodeon was a very, very big influence on me wanting to become a writer. Like, I'd watch a lot of their shows, and same with Disney Channel, I'd watch a lot of their shows, and I thought, oh my god, I totally understand what these characters are going through. So I get to the writer's class, and there's DJ McHale, and basically he says to us, what I'm going to have you guys do, so the class was called Write a Movie Scene in 10 Minutes. So he basically explained, you know, he talked about writing and stuff like that, and where he learned to become a writer, how he got to where he was with creating Are You Afraid of the Dark and stuff like that. And then finally he says, now it's your guys' turn. And I have a few rules. Number 1, don't stop. You can finish it, but don't stop. Don't stop writing. Number 2, don't think. Because when you're thinking, you're not writing. Number 3, no erasing. Because there are no mistakes. And, you know, like some of these people, no offense to them, but some of them were new at writing. Like how, like, I've been writing stuff for a long time. I still say I'm new to it because I haven't made a career of being a screenwriter yet. One day, I'm still getting there. And so he says to us, your script, you can write about whatever you want, but start with 4 lines. Line number 1, I don't want to go to school today. Or work. Either way. Line number 2, you have to. Line number 3, you can't make me. Line number 4, there's a twist here, but then you'll miss the surprise. What's the surprise? That was entirely up to us. So we started with those 4 lines, and what I decided to do is I decided to take a little chunk out of the first original script that I wrote when I realized that I wanted to become a screenwriter. I was 16, and I won't say too much about it, but it was it was a real good story for like teenagers. I used to get really anxious about like big school assignments and tests a lot, and so I wrote this scene where the main character was really fretting about this upcoming test, but got along incredibly well with the teacher. So basically, what was the surprise? She may surprise herself by doing well on the test. And that's what I wrote. And DJ says, is anyone brave enough to actually present their writing to us? I went, okay. So I read the script aloud, read stage directions and stuff like that, because when you write, you know, you have to put in like, James hands a glass to somebody, you know, you have to put in so that you'd have to put that in the script so that way the actors know what to do. And so once I get to the you might surprise yourself part, DJ looks at everyone's like, ooh, that's good. He described it as a typical teen angst story. And at the very end of the class, I talked to DJ and I told him some of the inspirations for that script. And we talked for a little while. I said I want to become a screenwriter. He was really impressed by what I had come up with. Next event, another guest that actually really made me want to go to this Hal Con, Cary Elwes. Cary Elwes, the star of Princess Bride. He was in the Saw movies, Robin Hood Men in Tights, Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, and like Princess Bride, great film. Liar Liar is probably one of my favorites, and Cary is one of my very favorite actors. He's a really cool guy. And so he was doing photo sessions and autograph sessions. I went to the photo session first, and I went up to his stage, and there he was, and he says, hi, what's your name? And I said, hi, I'm James. And he says, oh, nice to meet you, James. And I responded with, oh my god, it's nice to meet one of my favorite actors in the friggin' world. And he goes, thank you, that's very kind. And so is he, honestly. He's very down-to-earth, very nice. Yeah, Cary, he's a great guy. There's our picture right there. We were on opposite sides of plexiglass. I guess he was comfortable with that. Nothing the matter with that. You'd be surprised as to how many people in the lineup were dressed as Princess Buttercup from The Princess Bride. It was really cool. And next up was an autograph session with him. And so, again, a lot of people dressed up as Princess Buttercup. A lot of people had like Princess Bride stuff for him to sign. Again, Princess Bride is a great film, but one of my very favorites is Liar Liar. So I picked up a Liar Liar picture for him to sign, and he wrote on it, to James, the Claw. I don't know if you understand. If you haven't seen Liar Liar, watch it. It's a really funny movie. So he gives it to me, and he says, you're awesome. And I was like, oh, I forgive you for that lie you just told. So the next event was laser tag. I decided I had a little bit of time. I was going to go get supper, walk around downtown Halifax. I love walking around downtown Halifax. I actually ran into quite a few friends of mine while I was walking around. It was nice to see them. Some of them had never even met each other before, so I got to introduce them to each other. And honestly, that was really humbling. That was really a good feeling. So laser tag was the next event, and I was like, oh god, I'm gonna suck again this time. I was wrong! My team won! We are the champions! We are the champions! Sorry, my turn to gloat. Last day of Hal Con, Sunday. The first event I went to was called Writing for Comics. I find that kind of interesting. What it was a couple of comic writers and an illustrator talking about what they do. And one of the illustrators that was there was Gene Ha. And he would go, if he saw you in a costume, he would go up to you and he'd say, can I take your picture? Now, if you're wondering, I was not in a costume. I was myself. So he would take your picture in your costume, and he would draw you in your costume and give it to you. It was so cool. Maybe I should have put on a costume and he could have drawn me. Next up, another autograph session. This time it was Leah Clark, who does Toga in My Hero Academia. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not sure. It's an anime show, and again, anime is something I am incredibly new to, but it's really cool. It's also really well written. So I went up to Leah and I said, she's got a really cool job. Not only is she a voice artist but she is an ADR director, an anime writer. I thought that is really cool, and I said to her, I'm very, very new at anime, but I think you have a very, very cool career. So here's the autographed picture that she wrote me. She's like, who should I make this out to? I said, James. She said, are you James or is James your friend? And I was like, no, James is me, despite the fact that I'm new at this. And so here's the picture of Toga, and I said, stupid question, what's this character's name? She said, it's Toga. She told me a little bit about My Hero Academia. I have watched it before, just occasionally, like I'd go to a restaurant and there'd be a kids area, and that was on once, I remember. I think it was that one. Anyway, I recognized it. Here's, if you want to have a better look at it. So the next event was a photo session with Leah. I decided that I wanted to get the photo as well. And she was incredibly nice. Very, very, very kind. And actually, one of the people who was in line said that she met Leah as well, and she even got a thank you gift from her. I thought, that's very nice. And so right across from me, I see Will Friedel again. And he actually was throwing paper airplanes with a kid. I don't remember exactly how that came about. And one of them, it was a good toss, and it landed right in front of my foot. So I threw the paper airplane right back to Will, and he's like, that's a good throw too. And I said, yeah, it's called being young. And everyone went, oh, burn! So I got my photo with Leah. There it is right there. I'm not sure what exactly that is. She's like, you want to do this with the glass? I was like, okay. I guess it has like some kind of anime reference. I don't know. Again, it's all new to me. Maybe I'll notice it one day. And so right after that, it was actually time for me to go home. But before then, I went right over to Will Friedel, and he noticed me, and he's like, oh, hey, James, what's up? And I said, Will, I just want to say thank you for your friendship this weekend. I really appreciated it. He's very chill. He's very, very laid back. He's very, very kind. I like him a lot. And we still stay in touch. Will and I are still friends. Again, he was like my brother that whole weekend. So Monday, October 31st, a big night. I went to go and see my very favorite band ever, Simple Plan. I've been a fan of Simple Plan since I was 12 years old. I've actually seen them live before. I saw them in Quebec City, and I actually got to meet them afterwards and spend a little bit of time with them. They're very, very nice guys. Chuck, their drummer, and Pierre, their lead singer, super, super genuine. Yeah, they're a really great group. And they came to Halifax, opening up for the Offspring. Now, I didn't really know that much about the Offspring. I knew Pretty Fly for a White Guy, but that was really as far as it went for me. But for me, Simple Plan. This tour actually was announced last year, and the tickets to Simple Plan and the Offspring was actually my Christmas present. But this was when Omicron happened, and so because of COVID, it just didn't work out. But it happened last night, and it was awesome. I didn't get to meet them this time around, but my seats were actually pretty close to the stage, and I can see their guitar player, Jeff, Chuck, and Pierre. And Jeff's just looking around, and so I waved, and he waved back. I don't know if he remembered me, but I was like, oh my god, that's a good sign right there. And so they come on, believe it or not, to the Star Wars theme song, and I went crazy. I was like, yeah! Yeah, a lot louder than what I just did now, but they did a lot of the classics. I'd Do Anything, Shut Up, Jet Lag, Addicted, Your Love Is a Lie, what else? Oh, the theme song for What's New, Scooby-Doo, which is theirs. One of the best parts of it for me, Jet Lag, was probably, my sister and her girlfriend asked me, what was your favorite song to hear live? For me, probably Jet Lag. called Summer Paradise, and for that one, Pierre threw beach balls into the crowd, and everyone just kind of threw them around and passed them back and forth. I almost caught one! I almost caught one. Rats. Another really cool thing that they did was a little mashup of, medley of All Star by Smash Mouth, Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne, and Mr. Brightside by The Killers. I saw Avril Lavigne in June, and she did Skater Boy, so that's the second time this year that I've heard Skater Boy live. That's pretty cool, and that's a catchy song. He was a skater boy, she said see you later boy, he wasn't good enough for her. And of course they did their big classic, I'm Just a Kid. And during that, Chuck and Pierre switched positions, with Chuck talking to the crowd, and actually going into the crowd and high-fiving almost everyone, and Pierre on drums.
There he goes! Alright, you guys sing this next part with us? And 1, 2, 3! I'm just a kid, I feel it like that. I'm just a kid, I learn how to fight it. Nobody cares, nobody cares. I'm just a kid tonight.
And their set ended with Pierre coming on stage with an acoustic guitar doing their song Perfect, and then the band came in to do the rest of the song afterwards.
Nothing lasts forever. I'm sorry I can't be perfect. Now it's just too late, and we can't go back. I'm sorry I can't be perfect. Everybody make some noise!
And then next up, The Offspring, the headliners. Now, I did listen to a little bit of The Offspring going into this. I like them. I mean, Simple Plan is my favorite band ever. The Offspring, their energy really, really did make an impression on me. yeah, that was pretty cool. They did a lot of, I mean, I'll be honest, most of their songs I'd never heard. I knew Pretty Fly for a White Guy, I knew Why Don't You Get a Job, I knew Self-Esteem, The Kids Aren't Alright, You're Gonna Go Far Kid, stuff like that. It was, yeah, they put on quite a show. Dexter Holland, their lead singer, and Noodles, the guitar player, they were saying, you know what we really like about Halifax? How well you guys curse. Not gonna lie, there was a lot of cursing in some of their songs. Yeah, it was a really cool show. So, Hal Con, Simple Plan, and The Offspring. What a great last few days, and hopefully you enjoyed hearing me talk about them. So, I will see you next time. Peace.